Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Spain's biggest migrant regularization program in 2 decades has now closed after attracting well over 1 million applications, making it one of the largest legalization drives in Europe in recent years. But as Madrid argues, immigration is essential for its economy and aging population, a growing coalition of 19 EU countries is pushing in the opposite direction, backing offshore return hubs and tougher migration rules. And joining us now to discuss it all is Sylwia K, Mazur de Araújo Correia, researcher, Catholic University of Portugal, and a member of Team Europe Direct Poland. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Good morning.
So this is, these are massive numbers here. I mean, the idea was, I think, 500,000, but then actually there were almost, I think, well over, on our data here, 1.3 million that were actually received, these applications. So tell us what's behind this drive, first of all, and what does this mean ultimately for Spain and for Europe?
So this is actually the 7th program in almost 40 years when Spain is trying to, the current prime minister using the term to normalize what is going on. So to give possibility that people that are already on the market, that live in Spain, that have ties with Spain, and to allow them to legalize their status, because the whole scheme is actually addressed to undocumented migrants and with people that apply also for international protection. Plus, of course, the minors. So those are the 3 main categories that that can apply for under the scheme and can become visible for the system, where actually they partially are in a sense that they already have access to health system and education. So this is in order to make them fully compatible, fully visible, to make them pay taxes, and to also to sustain the welfare system in Spain. So there are two types of reasoning behind that: the humane reasoning, but also the economic one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this also becomes an issue for some because at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, a kind of residence permit legalizing them in Spain that also then allows people then to access then the European Union. So, I mean, it's not just for Spain. This would be actually a Europe-wide thing. So given also what we're seeing in Brussels, for instance, in the EU and different countries, they see this as slightly different. If we're looking at that letter from a few days ago, 19 EU governments saying very much they want tougher acts on migration, with those return hubs in third countries. So how do these two policies align? I mean, it seems like very different ideas of where migration should be.
Absolutely. So from the beginning where the scheme was announced, it was like late January this year, there were voices coming from Brussels, from the EU institutions, but also from other member states, that this is actually not in accordance with the current, let's put it this way, migration spirit of what is going on, because again, Spain is going against the tide of tightening the regulation, and here we're having the scheme that is actually allowing for that. So the voice of the 19 states, which you mentioned, it's a very, very strong one. What has to be, however, underlined is that at this point, the permit that those undocumented migrants can be granted will be renewable after 1 year. So this is like a status for 1 year. And then we will see what will happen next, because then they would have to apply for the other regular paths. And in this way, there is some kind of, let's put it this way, control over what is going on with them. But like you have mentioned, the voice coming from Europe, the voice coming from Brussels and from other European capitals are very, very strong. And like I said, especially in the context of the new pact on migration and asylum that has been enforced since this month, and it's in a stark contrast with actually what Europe was trying to present, was trying to project, that undocumented migrants are not wanted.
Mm-hmm. It's also an interesting case. I just want to look at, this is being pushed by the Sanchez government. These are social democrats, very much making that also economic argument we kind of alluded to already. But at the same time, not just those 19 other countries against this. I want to come back to the return hubs. In fact, if we just go to Denmark for a moment, the prime minister there, they're the same party. I mean, Europe-wide, the social democrats. Now, Frederiksen is very much for a harsher, tighter control of migration, offshore hubs. But Pedro Sanchez is against that. So what does that tell us? I mean, it's the same political alignment, the same political party, but very different views.
That shows you how the issue of migration and asylum, how highly is politicized, because like you're saying, those leaders are coming from the same political party, and yet they have completely different approach toward migration. Spain was also the only country that was voicing its reasoning against the return regulation, which is actually regulating return costs. So they were bringing a lot of arguments connected with international law, connected with human rights, and claiming that those solutions are not something that will will make Europe stronger and will bring European countries all together. But then again, it's a highly politicized issue, and do not forget that in Spain, who was behind that initiative, this was actually a people's initiative. So they were able to gather 700,000 signatures in order to push the initiative forward. What can be a little bit problematic is that the whole solution was not introduced through parliament. It was introduced to so-called royal decree. So that means that it was bypassing the parliament, where especially right-wing parties and central right parties were voicing their disagreement with that. So we are yet to wait and then see how the situation will develop. Nonetheless, the support for this solution is quite strong in Spain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and about that support, I'm just curious if we can. I mean, we just lump the idea of undocumented migrants into one category, but can you tell us a bit more about the kind of migrants that this includes? I mean, in terms of, are they integrated at all? Do they already speak Spanish? I mean, it's a blanket sort of check, but can you give us some details on some of these cases, on who's working where, the sectors they're employed in?
Yeah, so Spanish economy is highly relating on migrants, and there are sectors where migrants, like in the domestic sector, where employees are 80% of migrants are actually 80%. And then you have, of course, construction, you have agriculture, you have tourism, and so on and so on. So that is very important. Now, what are the requirements for people to apply? So they had to be in Spain before January 1st, 2026. So that was one of the arguments that was used in order not to treat this as a pull factor, not to bring more people. So people have to be already in Spain, and they have to have continuous stay in Spain for at least 5 months. They could not pose a threat to social order, so this is something very important, and they cannot have a criminal record neither in Spain nor in their home countries. There's also the requirement of having ties with Spain, but this is multidimensional, because, for example, what that means is that you already have a job, you're doing some kind of a work, or, for example, you're taking care of someone, so there are minors with you, or, for example, adults that require some kind of protection. Plus, there is a category of people that are called vulnerable people, so that means that they will also have an easier access. But then again, the crucial point here is that people do not have a criminal record and do not pose threat for national security and national safety.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's still a lot to, let's say, process in all of this. I mean, it's huge numbers. But if we look in the next sort of 6 months, or let's say a year from now, with this, you said these are renewable after a year's time. Do you see this as a program that will ultimately then be reversed? Do you see this as being, let's say, semi-adapted into a wider European policy? Will it backfire somehow? Where do you see this in a year's time?
So just to be clear, although, like I said previously, it's against the tide we are currently observing the European Union and Western countries, this is actually ad hoc programs that regularize migration. They're quite common because, for example, Italy introduced something during COVID, Ireland had something a few years ago. So this is something that we see in other countries. What is important here is, first and foremost, the number you have given at the beginning, that over 1 million people have applied under the scheme. If we will, per analogy, will compare with the scheme, the last scheme, similar scheme that was introduced in 2005 under Prime Minister Zapatero, at that time the recognition was over 83%. So that means that 83% of people that apply for that scheme were actually granted the legalization of their stay. So if the numbers here will be similar, you can do the math, and you can absolutely calculate how many more people will legalize their stay. What is, however, very important here is the fact that the demographic issue in Spain, because in Spain currently we're having 148% over 64 to 100 people that are under 60. So as you can see, the whole welfare system, the whole system of the working force and so on is not sustainable. So this is actually, again, one of the reasons that they decide to introduce that.
Mm-hmm. Right, so a lot of things there to analyze on a different view of migration. We'll see how that plays out also across Europe. But thanks for all that really insightful stuff. Sylwia K, Mazur de Araújo Correia, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.